Okay, we have a lot of people here and we've got a great panel, so I think let's just dive in and get started. Hi, I'm Valerie Bashida, and I am a member of the Druid Hills High School PTO, which is helping to put on this program tonight. And I'd like to kick it off by, first of all, having our expert panel introduce themselves. Brandi, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Brandi Beavers, and I am your post-secondary transition specialist for Region 2. I actually help our students transition from their high school to their college or career of choice, and whatever that means to them. But right now, basically, we're focusing on naviance, and that's a term you guys are going to hear a lot, and I may even mention it a little later, but I am so glad to be here to help you guys learn what naviance is.
Okay, Michelle?
Hey there, I'm Michelle Hiskey, and I'm a former parent. My child went there, graduated in 2018. Her name is Simral Smith. And I have been a longtime writer and journalist, and but most of you know me as a writing coach. I help with essays, and tonight I'm here to share some of the things that I've learned that will help your student. And I'm looking forward to your questions and just here to support you on the writing journey.
Thanks, Michelle. And Michael?
Hey guys, I'm Michael Trivette. I'm one of the co-founders of College Transitions. We're a college planning organization. We're actually, believe it or not, we started in Athens, Georgia, believe it or not, about 10 years ago. And we work with students and families all over the country, helping them throughout the entire college search and application process. So I'll be reviewing a lot of the questions that you guys posed earlier, I guess with Valerie, kind of giving you an overview of the college search and application process, answering any questions that you have related to that. So yeah, so we'll kind of be going over that stuff, and any questions that you have throughout tonight's conversation, I'm happy to answer. So looking forward to being here and taking your questions.
Thank you, Michael. And then in addition to that, we have a number of parents and students here. So I'd just like them to quickly introduce themselves, and then we'll get right into the program. So Jillian and Peter, do you want to start off?
Sure. I'm Jillian Baltris, and I'm a senior at Druid Hills, and I'm attending Kennesaw State University in their honors program, and I'm majoring in nursing.
And
Okay.
I'm Peter, I'm Jillian's dad. So I've definitely been through this experience right now. I'm also a professor at Morehouse School of Medicine. So I've, at that next level, I've sat on committees and in interviews of medical students and graduate students too. So I have that.
Okay, great. And Jennifer?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Jen Hart. I used to actually teach at Druid Hills, so I helped a few seniors navigate this process. And I also have a daughter who graduated Druid Hills in 2020, and she is currently a freshman at Georgia College and State University in Milledgeville.
Thanks. And Gretchen? Oh, Gretchen, I think you might be on mute. There you go.
Can you hear us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, I'm Ella Hiley, and I'm a senior at Druid Hills, and I'm going to Virginia Tech next year and majoring in industrial design.
And
Great.
I'm Gretchen Hiley, Ella's mom, and I also have a son who graduated from Druid Hills in 2018, who is a junior at University of Georgia.
John?
Hi, I'm John McQuiston. My daughter Jessie and I went through the whole search process this year, and she's a senior at Druid Hills, and she will be attending Northern Arizona University in the fall. And she's not on tonight. She's doing her homework. So
That's important. And Raj?
Hi, everybody. So my name is Raj, as Valerie just said. I am probably nowhere near as expert as anybody else on the panel, but I did present to parents in 2019. I had a daughter who graduated from Druid Hills High School. I have a daughter, not past tense. Graduated from Druid Hills High School in 2018, went to Georgia Tech. And my son graduated from Druid Hills High School in 2020, last year, and is at UGA right now. And my sympathies go out to all of you who are dealing with this very stressful, kind of process in the middle of what is an epic crisis we're having in this country. So just hang in there and you'll get to the end of this.
Thank you. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We'll start with Michael, who'll give an overview. As he mentioned, he had all the panelists had your questions, so he's going to incorporate a lot of those into what he says. But then after that, after the three panelists talk, we'll open it up for more questions, and any that didn't get answered that were sent, we'll try and get those answered, and then you can use the chat to ask more questions. So okay, so Michael, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I know there's probably a mix of parents and students at various levels in high school right now. So I'm going to give kind of a 30,000-foot overview of what students should be doing through the course of their high school career as it kind of leads into the college search and application process. And then we can answer some of the targeted questions too. I've tried to incorporate several questions into what I'm about to describe through 9th and 10th grades and then going into 11th and 12th grades. But I'm happy again to address specific questions, especially as it relates to testing, college search, college choice, anything that may be impacting college admissions going forward. So happy to do that as well. But in terms of 9th and 10th grade, a lot of students' interests are not obviously solidified, and students are sort of exploring what they want to study or think they may want to study. And that's through courses, activities, sports, organizations, all sorts of things, right? And so we encourage students to begin exploring those interests inside and outside the classroom. And students should start participating in clubs, activities with the goal of eventually identifying a few that they enjoy the most. Keyword there, enjoy. So many times I see students who are involved in different things, not because they necessarily want to do it, but because they think it will look good on the college application. And that's something that I'm happy to come back to later, but I would just advise students to focus really on what's most important to them. And so, pick out a few activities that they do enjoy. Hopefully one is academically related and maybe aligned with what they think they may want to study in college. There are plenty of activities in the clubs in the school itself that are academically focused. And so we would encourage a student to try to seek out some of those. That does offer, students do participate in a few activities over the course of high school career, just a few. It offers them really the chance to dive deeply inside those activities and earn leadership roles, distinctions and awards, the types of experiences that may come through in various parts of that eventual college application. So that would include the activities list, essays, letters of recommendation, so on and so forth. So if you or your student is targeting selective colleges like a UGA, for example, a Georgia Tech, or other highly selective institutions, course rigor does count for a lot, okay? And so with that being said, you wanna make sure that the student is enrolled in a sufficient number of honors and AP courses over the course of their high school career. And I would say even some of the most competitive students that I work with, they may take their first AP course in freshman or sophomore year, and maybe it's only one course, and that's totally okay. And then they kind of slowly ramp up for there. So you may see a student take their first AP course in sophomore year, maybe take 2 or 3 during junior year. Maybe if things are going well, they take 3, 4, potentially 5 during senior year. It's a lot to ask, but again, at some schools like a UGA or a Georgia Tech, that does mean a lot. So as students transition into 11th grade, that's when the college search process sort of begins to take shape. That's typically when students begin standardized testing with respect to the ACT or the SAT. We'll talk more about test optional admissions a little bit later because I know that's a hot topic this year. And after 2 years of high school, we start to see kind of that, we start to get a better picture of how the student's performing academically inside the classroom, what kind of things they're doing outside the classroom. And we can start to maybe put together a college list based on their credentials and their interest. Now, there are a lot of schools out there but I recommend first concentrating on a few local schools, namely public institutions, and sort of building out from there. Just heard from several parents who introduced themselves, and we talked about Kennesaw State, Georgia College. These are fantastic schools. Kennesaw State, I know they merged with Southern Poly several years ago. It's a rather large institution, but there are a lot of different majors there that are really strong. I think Georgia College, quite honestly, is one of the more underrated public liberal arts schools. You can compare it to like a Truman State out in Missouri or UNC Asheville in North Carolina. These are fantastic liberal arts schools. And these are in your backyard, and financially they're affordable. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have several schools like that on your list, and then kind of build out from there. If you want to look outside of Georgia at public and private institutions, you can always have that. But you guys have the benefit of having something like a Hope Scholarship, Zell Scholarship, Zell Miller Scholarship Program in Georgia. Financially, sometimes it can be difficult to leave the state of Georgia if you qualify for those awards. And like I said, if you have access to strong institutions. But I would say a lot of students will, once they've identified a few schools in state, they may start looking at between 10 to 20 schools. And as they learn more about their interests in specific institutions, what they want out of their college experience, and having looked into several different schools, they may start to get a better understanding of what's most important to them. So that may involve removing some schools from the list and adding new schools as that list kind of takes shape over time. And then I would say as a student goes in between sort of junior and senior year, that's when you want to start solidifying and kind of finalizing that college list. Now, I would say a good number for most students is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 10 colleges. And inside of that 6 to 10, you would hope to have 2 or 3 schools where your chances of admission are really strong. We sort of call them safety schools. There's no guarantee, of course, but your credentials compared to students who've been admitted in the past would lead us to believe that in all likelihood, you should be admitted. Several target schools, 2 or 3 of those, where you're more or less like the average applicant. So the decision in that sense could really go either way. It could be accept, it could be denied. You may get waitlisted. I'm sure you guys have heard about waitlists this year. They're rather long, but ultimately you still have a chance of earning admission in that institution. And then 2 or 3 reach schools, a little bit more competitive based on your profile, but nevertheless, you should have a chance of admission. And so that may be a school where maybe your grades and your test score averages are closer to the 25th percentile or even slightly below that. But nevertheless, if it is a reach school, it's going to be a little bit tougher. So that list, once it needs to be balanced, again, several likely schools or safety schools, target schools, reach colleges, 6 to 10, I think is a sufficient number for probably most students. Once you get higher above 10, I see or hear of students every year that apply to 15, 20 plus. I think if you've ever talked to a student who's been in that process, maybe some of your parents have witnessed that yourself, there is a lot of moving parts going on. That can be a bit overwhelming. And I would also suspect that most of those students, if they had to go back and do it over again, they would say, I would not do that. Okay. I've never met a student who applied to 20 plus colleges and said, yeah, that was a great idea. Usually it's not. So I think, the quality of the work can diminish a bit in the application. So again, going back to that number, I think 6 to 10 is really strong. That was sort of the main stuff I wanted to cover initially. I know we have plenty of time and we'll go into some more of those questions, but that's kind of the general sort of trajectory of how this works over the course of the first few years of high school going into junior and senior.
We had a lot of questions about testing, Michael, and I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about like the timing around testing before we jump over to Brandi.
Yeah, great question. So I would say most students will begin targeting the ACT or the SAT as they go into junior year. I typically recommend that juniors take their first ACT or SAT before December or January of junior year, just to get a test out of the way that fall. There are many different organizations that are out there that offer free practice tests. I think that can be beneficial because it gives you the opportunity to take a mock test in an environment that's less pressure filled, get a sense of which test may be right for you. There's actually a company that's based out of Atlanta. It's called Apple Ruth, and they're offering a free practice test weekend, the weekend of April 24th and 25th. You can take a free mock ACT or SAT, get a sense of which test may be right, take that for the first time during the fall of one's junior year. And then that sets you up to be able to retake that test in the spring of junior year or the summer between junior and senior year. And keep in mind too, that you still have the opportunity to take that even in the fall of your senior year before applications are due, because application deadlines can really run from October to as late as February for regular decisions. So there's plenty of opportunity to get testing in. I think a good number of tests to take, it doesn't matter which test you take in terms of the ACT or SAT, colleges have no preference. So it's really most beneficial to you to focus on the tests you feel most comfortable with. But I do recommend that students stick to one test. It doesn't make sense to spread yourself thin across 2 different tests. And so concentrate on the test that's best for you. Perhaps take it twice, possibly 3 times. After 3 times, there's what's called the law of diminishing returns. Probably heard that in many other things, but you start to plateau. And so we find that generally speaking, after about 3 testing attempts, most students don't make significant gains when it comes to testing.
Thank you. And just one clarification on the practice ones, is that for SAT, ACT, or both?
Both, yeah.
Okay.
So I typically recommend that a student take a practice ACT and a practice SAT if time allows and they're willing to do so, and then focus on the tests that they feel best about going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Brandi, you want to talk about financial aid and scholarships a little bit?
Perfect. Okay, guys, what I would like to do is just share my screen really quickly here. I prepared a little PowerPoint here for us. Let's see here. Okay, so for those of you who I've spoken to in the past, you know that I'm your post-secondary transition specialist, but also know that prior to joining DeKalb County, I actually worked with Georgia Student Finance Commission. And so Druid Hills was actually my school back then as well. So when you say that your kids, graduated in 2018, I hope I was able to help them through Georgia Student Finance. So, but I love financial aid. It's actually how I actually transitioned from geology. I used to be a geologist, fun fact, but that's how I transitioned from geology to education, starting off with Georgia Student Finance. So I love financial aid. So basically tonight, I am going to cover what is financial aid, as well as go over the HOPE GPA and kind of try to throw in a little naviance within my 10 minutes here. But what is financial aid? Financial aid is any monies that you use for the cost of your education, for your college education. And financial aid money is to pay for your post-secondary education, be it a certification, a diploma, or degree, associates or bachelors. And of course, types of financial aids are grants, scholarships, work study, and of course there are loans that must be paid back with interest. My preference for accepting financial aid is grants, because that money is granted to you and you don't have to typically pay it back. Scholarships are second, and I know you're saying, wait a minute, scholarships are second? Yes, because scholarships of course takes work, some type of mental or something you have to do in order to win or earn that scholarship. Work study, for those of you who are not familiar, work study is basically when you work on campus or a place associated with your campus and you're paid some type of paycheck or some type of stipend. And of course, loans means that they are given to you. And for those of you who have done your FAFSA, you know that you received $5,500 in loans and you didn't do anything. So if you fill out that FAFSA, you actually get $5,500 in loans. It does not mean that you have to accept it, but you are eligible for $5,500 in loans. So another question too is, when you do that FAFSA, does it cover your HOPE GPA, HOPE scholarship? And the answer is yes. By filling out that FAFSA, which is the federal form that you fill out, free application for federal student aid, you're covering both your federal financial aid, your institutional financial aid, which is monies that you're receiving from your college, and as well as your state financial aid. Okay, now, does that mean that your institution doesn't have a special financial aid form? No, they do. Many of them have. Does that mean that there's not a GSF apps on Georgia Student Finance webpage where you can cover your state aid? Yes, there is. However, just know that the FAFSA is the huge umbrella that covers everything. Now, sources of financial aid, I kind of spoke on HOPE or Zell Miller. Hope cover, depending on your institution, Hope covers anywhere from 75 to 80 something-ish % of your tuition. What is tuition? Tuition is what it takes for you to sit in that chair and listen to your professor. Hope does not cover your entire cost of attendance. Cost of attendance is everything that it takes to go to your college institution. Okay, that includes books, that includes fees, that includes tuition, that includes room and board. That's cost of attendance. Hope and Zell Miller pays for your tuition. For example, I think approximately right now, for my parents who have students attending UGA, as I recall, tuition is about $11,000-ish. And if you have Hope, you can expect to receive about 85% of that tuition to be covered from your Hope Scholarship. If you are a Zell Miller recipient, you can expect all of that tuition to be covered. Now, I talked about the FAFSA and I talked about loans. Another federal financial aid that you can receive is called the Pell Grant. And as I just stated, grants are my favorite because they're granted to you. And if you have a low enough EFC, expected family contribution, you can receive up to, I think it's $6,395 in federal grant monies. Now, if this is something that we need to cover one-on-one, because I know I have 10 minutes, definitely contact me, guys. I'll be more than happy to explain the FAFSA to you and what, compare your award letters, because I know you guys are receiving these beautiful award letters and you are wondering which is best for me. I've had students who went to schools outside of Georgia and they actually paid less because of their award letters. So we can definitely compare award letters, but for now, I just want to cover the basis for you, okay? I know a lot of you already know this, but I definitely would like to just cover for those of us who don't. Now, who can get federal student aid? The main thing I would like to tell you is that everyone can receive financial aid if you're eligible, and there are some criteria, but the most important thing I do want to point out is that if you are a male and over the age of 18, you must register with the Selective Service in order to receive your financial aid. Selective Service is indeed the draft. And one of the main things also I would like to point out is that you must maintain a satisfactory academic progress, which is also known in the financial aid world as a SAP. And typically that's around 2.3 to 2.5, depending on which schools you guys are attending. Now let's talk briefly about the HOPE program. Now, in order to receive the HOPE scholarship, notice I'm saying scholarship because there's a HOPE grant as well. But in order to receive the HOPE scholarship, if you're pursuing an associate's or bachelor's degree, that is the only time you're going to utilize your HOPE scholarship funding. You must have a HOPE GPA of 3.0 as well as 4 rigors. Now, students, if you don't know as a senior if you have a HOPE GPA of 3.0 or 4 rigors, I encourage you to log into your HOPE GA Futures account, okay? Or if you don't know how to do that, contact me and I'll be more than happy to do a little 5-minute tutorial with you. So if you have a HOPE GPA of 3.0 and 4 rigors, and you attend a public institution here in Georgia, in this great state of Georgia, you could receive upwards of 85% of your tuition paid for. Now, if you're just that smart, extra smart cookie, you can receive the Zell Miller Scholarship with a 3.7 HOPE GPA, 4 rigor courses, 1,200 on the SAT or 26 on the ACT. And as someone just told us here, that we definitely need to try to horn in on which test is more suitable to our testing style, okay? Parents are always asking me, SAT or ACT, Ms. Beavers? Well, that just depends on the student. For my son, who's a junior this year, he's definitely an ACT kid. We've already done the test and he's test betters with the ACT. But then my daughters, who one of them just graduated from UGA, they were definitely SAT students. So definitely, do practice tests, because we do have a practice test, actually a retired test, meaning tests that students actually use in order to get into their college of choice within Naviance, guys, on the home page. These are real, actual SAT tests, retired SAT tests, and they're actually offered to you for free. okay? And I definitely encourage you guys to visit Naviance and go scroll down to the very bottom page, and it'll say SAT test prep, okay? So
Brandi, we had a question. What are rigors?
rigor are courses that you take that GA Futures, Georgia Student Finance Commission, looks at to determine whether or not you're HOPE eligible. Now, there's a complete list of rigor courses. And if the students, just by design from DeKalb County School District, our students should have a minimum of 4 rigors, okay? That's part of the whole process. Georgia, our counselors and the district have taken that into consideration. So all of our students typically in DeKalb County School District graduates with courses such as core courses like our sciences, our Englishes. You know, if you're taking a third level, what is that, physics course, that should be a rigor. But there's a whole list. And when I say an entire list, it's like pages and pages. So typically our students have a rigor course. Okay. If you're taking your core courses, you have a rigor course. Okay.
We also had a question, are AP and IB GPA bumps calculated in HOPE and Zell?
Okay, so actually IB courses, AP courses, dual enrollment courses when they reach HOPE, Georgia Student Finance Commission, they are given extra consideration. So let's say I took a dual enrolled class and I made a B, right? So my HOPE GPA is going to reflect a 3.5 as opposed to a 3.0. Okay, there is no 4.5 because Georgia Student Finance doesn't give you an extra 0.5 for dual enroll IB or AP courses. It's only B, C, D, and F. Okay, so if I made an F in a course, my HOPE GPA is really going to be a 0.5 for that course if it's a dual enrolled or IB or AP class. So they do actually look at, if you're taking those 3 types of courses, Georgia Student Finance does look at those differently and give them a 0.5. Okay, now earlier I'd mentioned that there's a difference between HOPE Scholarship and HOPE Grant. If you're pursuing a certificate or a diploma, we do have, well, they do have the HOPE Grant and the Zell Miller Grant. They basically do the same thing. For the HOPE Grant, it will pay upwards of 85, depends on which institution you attend, but it will pay up to 85% of your tuition. And the Zell Miller Grant, of course, if you maintain a 3.5 GPA, will cover 100% of that tuition for your certificate or your diploma. Now, students, if you don't have a HOPE GPA, please create one. Actually, if you have a Naviance account, if you've already been in Naviance, you know that that is actually a requirement, a district required task. And trust me, guys, the district does look at those tasks for our students. They put these, well, actually my department put these tasks in your Naviance account to make sure that you're truly aware of your college and career choices, okay? So you can check your HOPE GPA, and you can still request high school transcripts in your GA Futures account, but we'll talk about Naviance a little bit more about that when it comes to transcripts, okay? But definitely, students, you need to go ahead and create your HOPE GPA account, because I want you to know whether or not your Social Security number is correct, because if it's not, you will not receive your HOPE funding, okay? I need for you to know if you have your 4 rigors, because if you do not, you will not receive your HOPE funding. So these are things that if you don't know how to do this, please guys, get in contact with me. It takes us 5 minutes in order to clear whatever needs to be cleared up within your HOPE GA Futures account. Now, when should I start? Well, actually, guys, now is the perfect time. We just established today that our middle school students will receive Naviance training. I'm so excited about that. I just learned that today, so that now our students from middle school will have all of the benefits that you guys have in high school, because there's so many things within Naviance, guys, that you need to take advantage of. It can tell you whether it has scattergrams. It can tell you whether or not what your chances are, your likely chances of getting into an institution based upon the students before you, your class of 2020, based upon how they got into a school, right? That's definitely a useful tool. Guys, go ahead and do virtual campus tours. Did you know that Naviance, that colleges are coming in and they're registering within Naviance for virtual college tours and virtual info sessions? Attend Probe, attend your high school, college, or career fairs, okay? Go on your Naviance homepage and we have a Common App link, because you guys are going to have to know about linking your Common App account to your Naviance account, and that's all coming. You know, I'm working with the counselors. You guys will be well educated on how to do all those little tricks, but I'm just trying to get you familiar, because before we even meet, go ahead and play with Naviance. It's an interesting tool, has so much to offer, and I highly encourage you guys to sign in. If you're signing in with your Chromebook, you'll have to log in with your Clever account. If you're logging in with your personal devices, guys, you're going to put in Druid Hills, okay? You're going to continue students as a student, and you're going to continue with the Clever account, and then you'll put in your Clever username and password. Please, 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 guys, play with your Naviance account. Scholarships. So let's think about scholarship like we would a job, guys. That's how I look at it. That's how we do it in my household. That's how my current junior, that's what I make him do. That's what I made my UGA graduates do. We think of scholarships as a job. That means that we have a dedicated time where we turn off all social media, we put cell phones on do not disturb, and we make the time count. Today, I sent out a family tweet saying, make today count. Well, when you're searching for scholarships, make that time count, okay? An example, every Saturday from 3 to 5, your friends know, do not call me because I am searching for my scholarships. I am paying for my education. How many scholarships? Well, for those of you, I don't know if I have anyone on here that's part of my scholarship club, but you know that Ms. Beavers says if you need $30,000, we're going to start off by multiplying that by 5. So if you need $30,000 in scholarship, guys, that means that you need to search for at least $150,000 worth of funding. Track your scholarships. Know what you've applied for, guys. Here's an example of an organizer sheet for your scholarships. Know what you know what you have searched for, know whether or not it needs an essay, what's the deadline? And I apologize, guys. I know that I'm kind of taking a long time here, but where do I find scholarships? Absolutely everywhere. Search for these scholarships on your counselor's website. In Naviance, we have a scholarship search site. On GA Futures websites, clubs, your school. And I say counselor's website because your counselors, guys, are excellent about listing scholarships on their webpage. And also my number one on here is goingmerry.com. That is my absolute favorite search engine for scholarships, okay? My scholarship, we call ourselves scholarship swipers. They will tell you, Ms. Beavers loves goingmerry.com. With that being said, I'm just going to put in here student.naviance.com. This is my final page, but definitely kids, I want you guys to explore Naviance, and parents, I got something to share with you. If you're a parent of a student, I can actually register you for you to have your own Naviance account as well. You can't change anything that your student has done within Naviance, but you definitely can monitor what your student has done in Naviance. And that concludes my presentation, and I will stop sharing here and I'll come back in. Thank you guys for listening to me.
Thank you, Brandi. Okay, Michelle, why don't we move on to you?
Hi, everybody. I hope your eyes aren't glazing over too much with all this information. It's a lot, and I am not going to give you very many slides, but I am hoping to give you encouragement as you go forward. The essay part is what I'm going to talk about right now. And the thing that you need to know about the essays, besides what Brandi just showed, that some scholarships involve essays, is that the common application, which we call the Common App, does require an essay. And I think Michael might be a better person to explain what the Common App is if you need to know what that is, but it is pretty much what it sounds like. It's the application that most students are going to be filling out and it's used by all the colleges, not all of them, but most of them. There's some other options, but most of the time when you do the Common App, you put your application in and then it goes out to all the different colleges that you want to apply to. Along with that essay, certain colleges and competitive colleges in particular have their own essays. These are called supplemental essays. They're usually shorter and they're more specific. So when you think about that, that's a lot of writing. And I just want to recognize how difficult this writing can be, not to scare you, but to really be honest with what your student is up against. We're all here tonight because college is a very, very important turning point. It's an important threshold. So you want your student to have the best chance at the best college. And your student knows that too, even before they write the first word. And you think about it, how many times are you gonna have to write like that in your entire life? It's a lot of pressure. Plus, you have a word limit. You can't just write everything. You have to make it fit. And some of the supplemental essays are probably only about 150 words. That's some really, that's tough. Then you have a deadline. You have to get these essays in by a certain time, you know, an early decision, early action, different deadlines. So the combination of all those together, as if that's not enough, they're asking you to write, they're asking the students here and the parents, you may have done this yourself way back, but you're asked to write in a way that is not really taught, it's not really required very often of your students, even at Druid Hills High School, which has a pretty good writing program. The personal essay is not going to be handed back. You're going to submit it, and it's not going to be graded, it's going to be read. And that's different, right? Because most of the students are given a rubric on their writing, even if they're writing an essay for class, and they're given a rubric and they're thinking when they're writing it, okay, how am I comparing to these other people in my class? Well, this writing is really different because the only person that you can really compare yourself to is you. You have to tell the story that only you can tell. And so it means not only writing differently, but it also means thinking differently. It means thinking about the things that you have gone through, the things that you think about, the way that you think in a way that is really shows who you are. And like I said, it's the piece that only you can write, because each of our students and each student that's on the call today is a unique person. And that's the really great part, is that you have a story that nobody else can beat you at. Nobody else can touch you on because it's your story. And so the trick is to put all that pressure aside and all the things that can easily cause writer's block for the things I mentioned before, and write that best story. So I want to show you, can I share the screen, Valerie? Okay. Yep. I'm going to just show you. Let's see. I think it's here. Do you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay. These are the prompts for this year's Common App essays. I'm not going to go over each one of them. I can give them to Valerie to put on the website. You can easily find them as well if you go to Common App. I think it's .com/essays. Let me give you, though, as we're looking at these, a couple of tips. Well, first of all, I'd like to say congratulate yourselves because you started early, and that's my main tip. The students who end up at the last minute writing something that they've just dashed off, there's really not a whole lot more they can do with that because they've run out of time. but most writers will tell you, whether they're writing a novel or they're writing an essay, they're writing a poem, the more time you give yourself, the better your writing's going to be. I would suggest thinking about writing this essay like a letter, not trying to make it in anyone's voice but your own. I know that we don't write letters very often, but that's the closest thing that I can tell you, because it's not like writing a tweet. It's not like writing a text. It's more like writing a letter. So when you think about what are you going to write about, think again about those unique stories and experiences that make you who you are. If you're thinking now, well, gosh, these are 7 really, I mean, like, how am I even going to do one and which one? You know what? Don't even think about these. Think first about the stories that you want to tell. And chances are, if you write an essay about one of those stories, about something really important that happened to you, a time after which nothing was the same for you, everything had changed, that will fit into one of these prompts, okay? So you can kind of reverse engineer it, write the essay, and it will fit into one of these prompts. And if you're wondering how to do that, you can email me. You see my email right there on my name. I'd be glad to help you. Look for anything that you've written, your child has written about their lives. Some students keep journals, some blogs, some have to do some kind of maybe a life story or some kind of thing. It can be a family history project, anything like that, that they've already written, because those pieces can help inform your essay. And then for those, as you look down the road and you think about having written one of these drafts, the most important thing I would say there is take a time to read it out loud, and ideally read it out loud to someone who doesn't know you, who's not your parent, but it's somebody who cares about you. And ask that person for some good feedback. Is anything in it confusing? Is anything left out? Does anything not sound like you? That kind of feedback can be really, really helpful. Next, I want to just give a few mistakes, common mistakes that I see. Like I said, a lot of people have concerns about the word count. The word count is what it is. I mean, you have to make your essay fit into the word count. The problem is when you start to try to write and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this has got to be this many words. That is one of the first things you can do if you want to have writer's block, is to think about that. So in correcting that mistake, I would say, don't think about the word count if possible, and just write your story, write your letter, write your essay, and then you can work on that later. You can always make it shorter if needed, but tell the story that you need to tell. Another mistake, and this is pretty common because this is what we're trained to do in our high school writing, and that is to describe the result and not the process of how you got there. The process of how you came to think of yourself, or how you came to be the person you are today, is the essay. Okay, the essay is not a description of who you are right now. It's a description of how you got there. And so a lot of times students will take a long time to get into the story, and then at the end they'll have a couple of sentences only of how this change or transformation happened. And I go, well, that's your essay right there. And you have to revise it quite a bit. But we'll talk about that. You know, what were you up against? What were the stakes for you? What was going to help you? What did you have to overcome? And how did you solve those problems in order to get to where you are today? Another common mistake, and I'll end with this one, is that when many of the supplemental essays will ask you, why are you applying to this school? those why essays are often the mistake that happens is that students talk about how great that school is. Well, the school admissions people already know that they're great. They already know what they, offer. What they're really asking you is about you, start with you. The personal essay is about you, the student. And everything needs to point to your persuasive power to say to the university that you want to go to that you deserve to be there and you are going to take great advantage of everything they have to offer. So with that in mind, those are my tips. Here are some of the essay prompts. I'd be glad to answer any questions either now or later. I did send some links to Valerie for free. There's lots and lots of free resources online that are, I sent her some specific links, but you can also find others on your own. Just keep going. You started early and give yourself credit for that and look for your best story. And if I can help you further, please contact me.
Michelle, this is Odette. Just to say that we thank you. Those were excellent links, and we put them into a document. I put it in the chat, and we'll be sharing them out with everybody as well.
Okay, great. Thanks all.
Now we're going to open it up to questions. We still have some from the questions you sent ahead of time, and you can put some in the chat. But I'm wondering if some of the students or parents might just, want to quickly share maybe some of the things they wrote on the essay, or just to give some parents, because I know when you first think about it, it's like totally overwhelming. Like, what do I even start with? So maybe if a few of you would like to mention what some of the students or the parents, what they wrote about.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the
yeah, I'm asking the parents on our panel if any of them would like to share what their students wrote about, or if Ella or not to put you on the spot, sorry Ella, or Jillian would like to share what they wrote about.
Do you want to go first?
You go first, Ella. You're good.
I wrote about my time as a counselor at a horseback riding camp, and I just sort of shared my connection to like a very special place, and it sort of showed that I was like a hard worker, and even when like it was a difficult situation, like I was still able to get through it, and that's the kind of thing that they really want to see.
And I'll just mention, I'll give a little shout out to Michelle, who helped both of my children with their essays. And I think what was most helpful is not only her great skills as a writer, but her not being their parent, who both of my kids are very strong-minded and independent and did not want any help. Actually, I never read either one of their essays because that was not shared with me, but he was a fantastic coach with both of them to help them put their thoughts together and give them some feedback.
Thanks. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, I guess I'll go now. I actually wrote a few essays. One of them was about being mixed race and like wanting to make a difference. Georgia College's like essay prompt was about diversity, so I wrote about that, and that was a big thing that helped. And then I actually wrote my essay for Kennesaw about camp as well, and going to camp and having to put myself in a leadership position there, even though it was pushing me out of my comfort zone, and how that affected my life and how I carried those skills on throughout the rest of my life.
So let me jump in here, though. I don't think anyone in this call is going to believe I remember at all what I wrote for my college essay, and you're absolutely correct. But I was involved with my kids when they were doing their writing, and the one thing that I think Michelle talked about this very eloquently is find your authentic voice, right? It's really about you. I don't think it does you any favors to try to pretend to be somebody else,
Right.
because at the end of the day, it's really about finding a place
Mhm.
that's a good fit for you and who you are.
Mhm.
You know, it's over the next 4 years, or, you know, whenever you graduate, you go to college. I fundamentally believe it's about the 2 C's, right? You're trying to build your confidence and your curiosity, because over the lifespan of your career, you're going to do multiple things. You're not just going to do the thing you studied in college. It's a constant process of evolution, and the two foundation pieces is confidence and curiosity, and being in the right place that helps you build your confidence and curiosity is so much more important than being in the place that's viewed as the best by some U.S. News World and you know, World Report, what have you. So, and I love what someone else said, right? Like every child is unique, and so that fit is so unique to your kid. So help them find their authentic voice. Understand, I mean, I understand this is a pressure-filled situation. Then my blood pressure went up by 20-30 points over the periods when my kids were applying, because we get very stressed, right? We want the best for our parents, and sometimes we lose sight of what that really means for the child, or for the kid. And I think I warned you, Valerie, I'm a very talky person. And you know, I think different people mature at different points. Like some children are incredibly mature at 13, 14 years old, and have like all these life experiences. And for others, it's when they're 25, right? Is when they get to that point where they really tap into what is the thing that drives them forward. So I'm very much a believer in finding that authentic voice, your own voice. It only helps you in terms of finding your fit to find a place that gives you, you know, that confidence and curiosity.
I just want to say that, like, as someone who recently, like very recently, had to sit down and write all of these essays, it is hard to write about yourself. And I think it's important to not take it too seriously. Obviously, like, it's a big thing and like you need to do well on it, but also telling a story that means a lot to you, even if it might be a little bit more lighthearted. And I know, for example, like UGA's application, like their supplemental question is they ask you to tell them an amusing story. And so that can be anything that you want it to be. And I wrote about starting karaoke club at Druid Hills. And even though that was like a tiny, like it feels like an insignificant thing, it ended up being something that made me stand out and also showed leadership and stuff like that.
I love that essay. I had a student write about, she's obsessed with Violet Beauregard, that girl in the Willy Wonka, and how purple was her favorite color. And it was just so funny. Yeah, that's just, if you can make your essay the least bit authentically humorous, that can really stand out.
Yeah, Jillian didn't share her essays at first with me, but when she applied to the honors program, she did. But, you know, and having had to look at applications into graduate school and that sort of thing, I mean, yeah, I'd like to reflect too, like it's that authentic voice, right? It's not, oh, I'm so great at this and that and projecting an image. It's really getting into, you know, challenging yourself to be like, you know, when have I really been challenged, you know, and how did I deal with that? You know, what, you know, how did this help shape who I am today? And how is this going to, you know, bring me forward as I face challenges in the future, right? Because everyone, you know, is a great student when everything is going fine in life and all that. And, you know, so, you know, those are the kind of things that the colleges want to see. They want to, you know, see, you know, do you have the character to, you know, keep going when things are rough, you know? And, you know, so that's what I'd like to say. And then the other thing too in this whole process, right? Everyone, right, you know, starts off in the place of like thinking, oh, I want my kid to go to, you know, the best of the best and this and that. But like, what's best of the best for your child may not actually be, you know, it might not be University of Georgia. It might not be Georgia Tech. And, you know, like for Jillian, like that was part of the process. You know, Jillian started, you know, forever being like, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. And then as she started to interact with the healthcare system and talk to people, she's like, you know what? I think I really want to be a nurse practitioner, you know? I'm like, okay. And then as she started to research programs, guess what? Guess who doesn't have nursing programs, right? You know, Georgia Tech doesn't, University of Georgia doesn't, you know, and so it becomes a whole other thing, you know, and so the right fit for your child may not actually be where you think you want them to go, you know, and so that becomes the process then of like doing the research of, you know, what are these different programs, you know, that my child is interested in, you know, and what's the best fit for them within those choices.
To add on to what my dad was saying, is my audio bad?
It's okay.
Okay. So one of my math teachers told me once, she was talking to a student and he's saying, oh, I want to go to Emory, I want to do this. And her advice was, do what's right for you. The name's not going to matter. Research your major there, what opportunities they have for your major there. Like Kennesaw has a bunch of scholarships for nursing. So it was a better fit for me than going to like UGA or a bigger out-of-state school. It was about what's going to be more affordable, and I'm probably going to get the same education at Kennesaw rather than another school.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I think a lot of times when you get to sort of junior year and senior year, there's a lot of competition among students of where you're applying and what you want to do and all of that. And it can get hard to really look at what you want to do. And so it's important to figure out what kind of school you want to go to and then find something that really fits you regardless of how prestigious it may be.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that. I think it's a great point you brought up. It's important to sort of tune out the noise. There's a lot of noise that surrounds selective college admissions, and it's easy to get yourself caught up in the hype to the point where you may make some irrational decisions and come to regret some things later. So like you just mentioned, it's important about focusing on what you can control, what means the most to you, and really, you know, doing some introspective sort of self-analysis along the way, because this is your life. And a college decision does not define the future success you're going to have. I think all of us who are older can tell you about admission decisions, whether it was undergrad, graduates programs, whatever, where it didn't go the way we wanted it to. But it probably led us down this path that we were sort of intended to pursue. And good things come with that. So high school, I tell students all the time, high school goes by fast. You know, just kind of seize the moment, enjoy it, and learn more about yourself along the way and go from there.
Yeah, and one more thing too is sometimes these other institutions you might not have considered first have like these great sub programs within them, right? So Jillian applied to the Honors College and got into at Kennesaw State, and you know, and that's just like a wonderful opportunity at this enormous campus as far as the number of students there is the opportunity to, you know, be in smaller class sections, you know, that offer more discussion of the topics at hand, and also often lead to other opportunities for scholarships and that sort of thing. And so that's the thing, you know, so really broaden your, you know, your thinking and, you know, what's potentially right and right for your, you know, particular child as you go through this process.
Yeah, and Peter, just to let's see, just to make sure I wasn't muted, just to add to that. There's often a tendency to overlook large public institutions because many students think they may get drowned out in that environment, right? It might be too hard, might be too big. But there's a lot of great institutions, like you mentioned, Kennesaw State, that offer a strong honors program. There are many others across the country. One that comes to mind is Barrett Honors College at Arizona State in Phoenix, Tempe area. And these are strong, more smaller colleges in a larger university environment. So they have all the resources and amenities offered there. but they have a more structured, tailored academic program within that larger university setting. And there can be scholarship opportunities, study abroad opportunities, just opportunities to do research, really cutting edge research with faculty that you wouldn't typically find at a large Research One institution. So a lot of students and parents will benefit from checking out some of these larger public institutions and the honors colleges housed within them, because that's how a lot of these large schools are trying to recruit really talented students, like your own daughter. So yeah, that's great advice.
I'm wondering, we had a lot of questions about how to get started, and I think we're touching on that a little bit, but I'm wondering if maybe some of the parents could also just chime in on, like, when you're faced with this, oh my God, what do I do now? Like, how do I even start figuring out where to go? Maybe if a few of you could share that process.
I'll share it. So I think that the easiest way to start is to figure out like the general like genre of school you want to go to. So that could be easy with like just looking at a big school, a medium-sized school, and a small school, and then like a school in the city, and then a school in like college town, and sort of narrow it down to that. And then once you know that you want to go, like for example, I knew I wanted to go to a big state school. And so after I did that, I was able to go look at other schools that fit under that instead of looking at a bunch of schools that I knew I wasn't going to fit under.
And I would say that was advice that was given to me with my older child as well, as if you just happen to be on vacation or you're visiting family, I mean, just drive by the campus and start to let them see and feel. I mean, you can go on the tours, and I know they're shut down right now, but they're all kind of pretty much the same. Guess what? They all have fantastic students. They all have a study abroad and so on. But, so you kind of hear one of those or a couple of those and they're very similar. But I think just getting a feel for the environment and knowing that, the kid's going to have to live there for 4 years. Do they feel like this is the comfortable kind of environment for them?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm going to Virginia Tech, and that was the first school that I went to and like didn't take the tour. And I just walked around campus and it felt right. And I think that that's a more valuable experience than walking around with a group and having to, like look at all the specific buildings and everything. It's easier to just like be at a school and ask yourself, can I imagine myself here for 4 years?
Yeah, go Hokies. I went to Virginia Tech, so did my wife. But one thing I just want to reiterate is the fitting in on campus, because Jessie, she had very high grades and high test scores and pretty much could have gone, to the college she wanted. But we went to a bunch of different colleges and really felt like she fit in at Northern Arizona. And so even though it's a smaller school, that was what appealed to her, that it was a smaller school and she didn't feel the pressure of some of these bigger schools. Like we did the Boston tour, we did colleges in Virginia, and Northern Arizona just really fit, and the people there were really nice. So I do think that's really important.
That's cool too, John. You get to go out to Flagstaff. Good place to go.
I'm going to go visit about every other week, but
yeah,
he doesn't want that, but oh well.
One thing too, I would say, one thing we did learn too is with my son, he hated UGA when we first went there. It was too big, it was too much. There was buses going all around, and he thought he wanted to go to a much smaller school. And then throughout the decision process, he got into pretty much all the schools. I mean, and we never did 10, I can't imagine. So anyway, but he got into some smaller schools, but kind of looking at the finances and knowing that his objective later was to go to law school, it really just didn't make any sense to go, to some of the schools he got into and pay the money for undergrad when we knew we were going to be doing that later. And he went to Georgia and loves it. I mean, he talks about it all the time. Like, I'm so glad I didn't go to any of the other places. So sometimes it makes it hard because, you go in one day and you walk around and maybe it's a bad day or something's going on that doesn't seem as exciting. But I think that it's hard though. You have to kind of keep an open mind a little bit as well and not be too judgmental.
100%.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say is that, you know, regardless of the size of school, I think for the most part, the student population tends to be really diverse. And so there are connections there for everybody. And I think, you know, the research has certainly shown that you're happiest when you find people that you connect with, that you can build relationships with, right? It's not just about the program, it's about having the relationships and the support structure there and the feeling of connection and community. And so one of the things that you know, I encouraged the kids to look at was, are there activities on campus outside of the academic stuff, right? Are there activities on campus that are things you may want to do that allow you opportunities to build connections with other people? You know, I think the whole Greek system is a big way to build that community, but it's not right for everyone necessarily. But if it's right for you, that's great. But if there are other places where you can go and connect, you know, it doesn't matter what the club might be, whether it's an outdoor club or, you know, something to do with cars or what have you, whatever your interest is. If you can find those kinds of things that allow you to build your community, I think that's an important consideration as well.
I saw a question about the virtual visits during COVID, and I applied to a lot of the smaller schools in Georgia, and I went and visited all of them. But before I went, I did the tours online, and they give you a basic idea of what the campus looks like. But I feel like going on a real tour, or like if you go on a self tour, make sure there's students there and you can really get a feel for the community there. Like I was set on going to Georgia College, it was my top choice. And then I went and visited the campus, and the community there wasn't what I was looking for personally. And Kennesaw was actually probably on the bottom of my list. And I went on a tour, and my tour guide was talking to everything, like everyone there, like people passing by. It just seemed very connected, and they talked about all the activities there. I guess I kind of judged the school also on like the tour guides, like they give you a good idea. I went to Valdosta, and our tour guide was not the best, and so I guess it's a good representation of the school. Yeah.
Okay, we're probably going to wrap it up. So if anyone has any other questions, there's one question we had on here that we did not get to, and I thought it might be a good one, about the benefit of applying early action versus regular decision. I think maybe, Michael, you could weigh in, and then maybe some of the parents could weigh in on whether you did early action or regular decision. I think that's always a big one for everybody.
Sure. Yeah, I say whenever possible, especially at public institutions. There is some admission related benefits to applying early action. One of the big things is you hear back early. Georgia and Georgia Tech are known for releasing decisions really early. I think UGA may have done it around Thanksgiving this year, which was extremely, you know, for those students who heard back and got in, that's a great way to start Thanksgiving. There's a difference though between some early action programs, and you have to pay attention to schools like Notre Dame or Princeton, Yale. Some of these schools that have what's called single choice early action or restricted early action. And essentially what that means is you're prohibited from applying early at other private institutions, but you can still do that at public institutions. So you can still apply early action to a Georgia Tech or UNC Chapel Hill, et cetera. So sometimes you have to read the fine print on some of those. We actually have a page on our Dataverse. So if you go to collegetransitions.com/Dataverse, we actually break down the admission rates by application type. So early action versus regular decision versus early decision. So you can see how some of those admission rates compare at institutions across the different plans they are offered. So you may see a school that offers early decision and their admission rate might be 3 times what it is for students who apply regular decision. And so if there is a school that's a clear number one choice, there may be some benefits to applying early decision there, obviously. So again, that's collegetransitions.com/Dataverse. I'll include a link in the chat. So if anybody wants to go check that out, they can.
I applied only early. I did early decision for Virginia Tech, and I only applied to 4 schools, and all the presentations I ever saw, I heard apply to 6 or 10 schools, and so I knew where I wanted to go, and I was also overwhelmed by the idea of finding 6 to 10 schools that I wanted to go to. And so I think it's fine to apply to 3 or 4 schools. And I applied early decision to 1 and then early action to 3. And it's really nice to hear early. And I would recommend picking a school, like a safety school that does rolling admission, so that you find out like you got into college and you are going to college as early as possible. And rolling admission is when they release decisions as they decide. So you can turn it in and then they'll have it by a certain time and you'll get it whenever. And that's really, really nice because it's a stressful time, like sitting and just waiting for all the applications to come back. And I think early is good for that, but regular is also a good option if you are having trouble deciding, or if you want your first semester senior year grades to be included, or if you want your updated test scores or anything like that.
Okay, any other parents want to weigh in on that, or?
I just wanted to jump in with something that I wish somebody would have told me at this point when my kids were going through this, and I see it every year with the students that I help with essays. And that is that the number one reason that people pick a school at the end of the day is for cost. And it's sad, but I think you can see why, because the price tag can be so large. So I wanted to give a shout out to Brandi and her scholarship club, because I think when you think about getting in, you can also face a rejection financially. You can get into a great school, but if you can't afford it, that's the same as being rejected in my book. So make sure you pave your way with the financial part of it, because that's going to be such a big thing when you look at everywhere that you got in.
That's great advice. I was going to actually bring that up as well, that if, you know, once you get your awards and everything and you find all of that on from the FAFSA and see what the school, when the school, you know, you've applied and the school will tell you what you've been awarded as far as scholarships. It's just, you know, it's a reality for most of us that we have to look at that too. So, you know, looking at that and even looking a little bit ahead of time and being aware of sort of the average yearly cost and planning around that. You know, if it's a private school that doesn't take Hope and it's, you know, $60,000 a semester or some crazy cost, then, you know, it might not be a possibility, and it's something to sort of deal with earlier than later.
Good thing on college costs too. I wouldn't necessarily let a school sticker price scare you off. There are a lot of institutions that offer healthy amounts of what's called need-based aid and merit-based financial aid. And I've worked with plenty of students from Georgia who've applied out of state at institutions and received more money from private schools than they did from in-state publics, to the point that it was more actually advantageous to go out of state to a selective private school because they qualified for significant need-based and merit-based aid. It's part of the reason why we put together a book called College is Worth Your Money, and we speak to that. It's all about outcomes, and it's about how much these colleges cost and what they can do for you. And so we actually have a paragraph in each profile that says worth your money, has a question mark, because is this college financially worth it for you? Are there things that you should take into consideration before you apply to the school or consider this college? Again, you can Google net price calculator for any college that's out there, get sort of a rough estimate of what you would qualify for in terms of some of that need-based financial aid. Some of it may be surprising to you, and then you may actually decide to apply there. And if you're a competitive applicant, they could make it worth your while to attend.
I do want to ditto what Michael just said there, because definitely if you guys are Hope or Zell eligible, you can definitely take your Hope or Zell funds and show it to your college out of the state of Georgia and say, if I stay in the state of Georgia, here's what I could potentially receive. How can you guys match it? That's definitely something that I encourage my students to do. And also, guys, don't forget, within Naviance, there's so many tools where you can find your fit, be it location, be it price, be it your major, pre-med, whatever, we can definitely kind of pinpoint or horn in what we need to look for in a college. And so definitely use that Naviance tool to try to find your fit, no matter what it is. For me, when I was going off the Furman, of course, for my mom, it was finances. How many scholarships could we find, right? So I don't know what your fit is. For many of my students, finances is not a part of their perfect fit. So definitely use that Naviance tool to horn in on what is your perfect fit.
And Brandi, someone asked if you could give more information on the scholarship club.
Well, the scholarship club is something that I do every year. I started out just at Tucker with a couple of, like, it was like 4 kids. And all of my kids now are going from that particular club. They're now going off to their college of choice with no everybody's covered scholarship wise. So we kind of made it a little larger this year, but guys, it takes so much dedication. So and the kids that are part of it, I think I have maybe out of all of them, I probably started out with 20 this year. I probably have 5 that are truly dedicated. And I asked at the beginning of the scholarship club, how much funding did you need? And I think the max was like 50,000. Well, we surpassed that. So because I asked that you apply to 3 scholarships minimum every week. That's how intense it is.
Wow.
And if you need help with essays, of course, I help you with that. You know, I can bring in college reps, tell you what exactly they're looking for. So it's a very intense club. And 9 times out of 10, if I have 20 students, at the end I only have 5, because it's kind of like, you know, so, but it's, so I try to do it every year for those students who are really in need of that extra funding. It's a lot of work, but, you know, in the end it pays off. And your counselors kind of tell me this student really wants to be a part of, and I kind of vet the students, ask them a couple of questions and go from there.
So Brandi, you said something about I don't remember what you called it, but it was the amount that the family could contribute.
Expected family contribution?
Yes.
The
So
EFC.
one thing we found out during this process was that if you have put away money in a 529 plan, that actually counts towards your contribution, saying that, so you're actually eligible for less financial aid because your expected contribution is higher because you have actually saved over a number of years. So just be aware of that. If you have savings for college and 529 plans, that will actually count against that.
Yeah. There are a couple good books that are out there that can sort of give you more insight into how personal family finances may play a role in the financial aid process. One is called The College Solution by Lynn O'Shaughnessy. She's really a financial aid expert. She used to write for Money Magazine. Another book is actually more recent. It's called The Price You Pay for College. It's by Ron Lieber, New York Times journalist. This book has received a lot of press recently. It just came out in January. And actually he talks about some of the more of those personal finance things that many people just don't think about. For example, like if you have a savings account in a student's name, that's assessed at a higher rate, and you wouldn't necessarily want that. And so you can do some things to move some money around in the front end so it doesn't have a negative impact on you and your student's financial aid award.
I hope I'm on mute because I'm just typing or not. Okay.
Hey, Michael, will you put the link to that book in the chat?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, while we're doing that, I just wanted to thank everyone on our great panel, the experts, the parents, the students. I think this has been really helpful. So thank you so much for agreeing to participate. Thank you all who came. This is like, I think the biggest turnout we've ever had for anything. So it's really exciting. And you will be getting a follow-up survey. So please let us know what you think. Let us know what we can do better, what you liked, what you didn't like. Let us know what else you want to have programs on going forward, what time is best for you, et cetera, because we hope to keep doing things like this going forward. So thank you all.